Let's talk about the number one question I get about Medicare. So if you are approaching 65 and you are still working and you have group coverage through your employer, what do you need to do? How do you protect yourself from penalties? Do you need to sign up for Medicare? Let's talk about this. The answer to what you need to do is going to depend on your circumstance. So first, let's start with somebody who works at a company with 20 or more employees. If there's 20 or more employees, then you can stay on your group plan. You want to confirm with your HR department that your insurance is primary to Medicare. If it is, then what you should do is compare your plan to Medicare and then decide which is the better path for you. You don't have to call Medicare up and say, hey, I'm staying on my group plan. You just stay on it. Now, the only caveat to that is if you're working and you're already taking Social Security, then you'll automatically be enrolled in Medicare. And then you do need to let Medicare know because you're going to have to reject Medicare Part B after being automatically enrolled. Also, at that company with 20 or more employees, if you've decided to stay on your group plan, then you may want to consider enrolling in Medicare Part A. You should do this as long as you're not contributing to an HSA. If you're contributing to an HSA, then do not take Medicare Part A. Then what's going to happen is you'll stay on your group plan, and when you decide you're retiring, leaving the group plan, you're going to file for Medicare under what's called a special enrollment period. There's certain documents you're going to present with your application so that you are not penalized for not taking B when you were first eligible at 65. Now let's look at scenario number 2. You work at a company with 19 or less employees and you have also group coverage. In this scenario, the discussion is going to be different. You're going to want to take Medicare A and B, and let me explain to you why. So when you're at a company that has 19 or less employees, your plan is not primary to Medicare. So in other words, Medicare under that scenario is going to be the primary payer on your health expenses. So if you don't take Medicare and you only keep your group plan and you have some big expensive bill, there's a good chance your group plan is not going to cover it because contractually it's no longer their obligation to do so. So when you work at a company with 19 or less employees, talk to HR, find out. Typically in that scenario, your company is going to be secondary, but there are some fact patterns where somebody's part of some sort of a multi-group plan and maybe it's still primary to Medicare, so you want to check that out. Now, with it being 19 or less, and let's assume it's secondary to Medicare, and I know this is confusing, just reach out to me. I'll help you figure out what it is for you. But in the meantime, in that scenario, you're going to sign up for A and B, not because you're going to be penalized, but because of what I mentioned earlier, the fact that you don't have primary coverage. The other thing to know is that maybe you consider keeping your plan as a secondary payer, but typically I don't recommend that. That can often be very expensive. Maybe it doesn't fill in all the gaps that you need it to. So at a company with 19 or less, you're going to sign up for A and B, and then you're going to figure out what your supplemental coverage is going to be. If you've decided you are going to stay on that plan and you're not taking Medicare, and as I mentioned, there won't be penalties, you still get a special enrollment period, but I would not suggest doing that unless that insurance company is going to put in writing that they will remain as your primary payer. Otherwise, you may be setting yourself up for some big bills if you have some health issues.